Welcome to my channel, and don't forget to subscribe if you're ready to change the way you learn forever. Today, I'm sharing a powerful story that might feel a lot like your own, a journey of struggle, self-discovery, and transformation. It's about Ethan, a regular guy who, like many of us, kept failing every time he tried to learn something new. He had all the tools, books, courses, motivation, but nothing worked. The more he tried, the more stuck he felt, until one day, a simple conversation with an old friend flipped everything. She didn't offer more tips or another shiny productivity app. She told him the truth. He wasn't broken. His method was. That moment sparked a shift. Ethan began exploring how the brain actually learns, diving into concepts like neuroplasticity, active recall, and spaced repetition. He stopped learning the hard way and started rewiring his mind with techniques that work with the brain, not against it. Step by step, he built a system that transformed his learning and his life. He didn't just become better at coding. He became better at learning anything. His journey takes us through failure, reflection, habit building, and even helping others along the way. This isn't just a story, it's a roadmap. Now, before we dive deeper, let me ask you a few fun and honest questions. What if the way you were taught to learn is the exact reason you keep forgetting what you studied? What if the struggle you feel while learning isn't a sign of failure, but proof that your brain is growing? Have you ever tried to teach something you just learned to someone else, even your pet, just to see if you really got it? And here's a big one. What would happen if you stopped focusing on being perfect and just focus on getting 1% better each day? This story will challenge you to think differently, reflect more, and even laugh at how complicated we sometimes make learning. So, stick around, hit that subscribe button, and get ready to unlock the learning style that your brain has been waiting for all along. Let's dive into Ethan's story, and maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to write your own. Ethan sat silently, staring at the glow of his laptop screen, frustration pulsing behind his eyes. Another failed attempt at learning something new. This time, it was coding. Just 2 weeks earlier, he'd promised himself that he'd finally master Python. He bought an expensive course, set reminders, even created a vision board. But here he was, once again, stuck at the start. His motivation was gone, drowned beneath an avalanche of YouTube tutorials and half-finished quizzes. He felt broken. What was wrong with him? Why did learning feel so impossible? He closed the laptop, leaned back on his chair, and scanned the bookshelf beside him. Titles like The Power of Habit, Deep Work, and Atomic Habits stood tall. He'd read them all. Theories, frameworks, promises. Yet nothing stuck. He felt like a broken device programmed to forget everything the moment it entered his brain. That's when a message came in. "You free tonight?" It was Maya, his old classmate. They hadn't talked in a while, but he remembered she had recently taught herself Spanish, landed a remote job as a designer, and was now learning data science. He typed back a simple, "Yeah, call." When the call connected, her energy was electric. "Ethan, you good?" He hesitated, then replied, "Honestly, I'm stuck. Again, I keep trying to learn new things, and it just never clicks. I don't know if it's me or it's not you." Maya interrupted. "You're just learning the wrong way." "What does that mean?" "You're using broken methods. Memorizing, passive watching, hoping it sticks. That's not how the brain works." He was silent. She continued, "I used to be the same, until I discovered how to rewire my brain to learn anything. Real learning happens when you use your brain's natural mechanics. Once you do that, everything changes." Ethan leaned forward. "Teach me." "All right," she said. "First, forget everything school taught you. Learning isn't about repetition. It's about engagement, feedback, challenge, reflection. Think of your brain like software. It upgrades based on input, not just information." That night, something shifted in Ethan. He stayed awake, devouring every article and video he could find on neuroplasticity, metacognition, spaced repetition, cognitive load, and retrieval practice. His browser was overflowing with tabs titled things like How the Brain Learns, Active Learning Techniques, and Why Cramming Doesn't Work. By sunrise, he knew he needed to start again, but this time, differently. He wasn't going to force himself through another course. He was going to rewire his mind. He picked one goal: learn Python. But now, he was going to treat it like a brain upgrade, not a test. Step 1. Activate neuroplasticity. That meant pushing himself just beyond his current ability. Not too easy, not too hard. Challenge, but not overwhelm. Step 2. Stop passive learning. No more hours of video watching. He'd focus on doing, creating, and applying. Step 3. Introduce feedback. He would test himself constantly, not to judge success, but to learn from failure. He opened a blank document and titled it Rewire Plan. He wrote, learn by doing. Use retrieval, not review. Space the reps, reflect every day. Teach what I learn. For the first time in years, learning didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a puzzle. He started small. One Python function. He read it, then closed the tab and tried writing it from memory. Failed. Looked again. Tried again. Closer. Then correct. He smiled. He wasn't just learning code. He was learning how to learn. Each day, he committed to 1 hour. No distractions. Phone off. Noise-canceling headphones on. Timer set. And he followed Maya's rule. Always end with reflection. He kept a learning journal where he answered 3 questions. What did I learn today? Where did I struggle? How can I make it easier to remember? Soon, Ethan noticed something strange. His memory improved. Concepts stuck. Problems that confused him before now made sense. He even began looking forward to his learning hour. By the end of the second week, he had built 3 small projects. He was debugging, explaining his code aloud, even helping other beginners online. But most importantly, his confidence grew. He no longer feared forgetting because he had a system to remember. The biggest breakthrough came when he realized this wasn't just about coding. If he could rewire his mind to learn programming, what else could he do? Languages, marketing, design, communication. Suddenly everything felt possible. The old Ethan believed learning was about talent. The new Ethan knew learning was about technique. He understood now. The key wasn't more motivation. It was better wiring. The first brick was laid, and he wasn't going back. Ethan woke up with clarity. For the first time in years, the thought of learning didn't bring anxiety. He wasn't chasing perfection. He was chasing progress. His new mindset was simple. Learning is a skill, and like any skill, it could be practiced, refined, and improved. He reviewed his notebook. The 5 rules stare back at him. Learn by doing. Use retrieval, not review. Space the reps. Reflect every day. Teach what I learn. Each day, he added something new. He integrated the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of focused learning, followed by a 5-minute break. It kept his mind sharp and reduced fatigue. He realized how easily distraction could hijack progress. So he removed temptations. No phone, no tabs, just one screen. One goal. He replaced motivation with systems. He didn't wait to feel inspired. He showed up every day, same time, same place. Discipline didn't mean working hard all day. It meant showing up consistently for a short period with full attention. As the days passed, he started to understand concepts that once confused him. Variables, functions, loops, they began to feel natural. He no longer feared forgetting because he'd built a spaced repetition system. Each night, he opened Anki and reviewed flashcards generated from his learning sessions. He wasn't memorizing definitions. He was retrieving concepts, explaining functions, and solving code from memory. The friction of learning started to fade. One morning, Ethan tested himself. He opened a blank file and challenged himself to build a simple calculator. No tutorials, no notes. Just him and the screen. He struggled, got stuck, Googled error messages, retyped, debugged. After an hour, it worked. That success wasn't just technical, it was mental. It proved to him that learning was working. Not fast, but real. He added one more principle: environment design. He crafted a workspace that invited focus, clean desk, calming light, comfortable chair. A space where only learning happened. The brain, he realized, responded to physical cues. If his body knew it was time to learn, his mind would follow. He also learned about state-dependent memory, the idea that we remember better when our emotional and physical state matches the one we were in during learning. So he created rituals. The same hoodie, the same playlist, the same tea. It was like flipping a switch. Week by week, his identity shifted. He no longer said, "I'm trying to learn Python." He said, "I'm a learner," and learners learn. Ethan started to track his progress, not by how much he completed, but by how well he could teach. At the end of each week, he recorded a video explaining the concepts he learned. No script, just raw understanding. Teaching forced him to clarify. The gaps in knowledge screamed back at him, but he welcomed them. Gaps meant room to grow. He joined online communities, not to find answers, but to engage with others on the same journey. He realized learning didn't have to be lonely. He posted questions, answered others, shared his wins and losses. The feedback loop accelerated his growth. One day, someone messaged him, "Your explanation helped me finally get it. Thanks." That one sentence lit a fire inside him. He wasn't just learning for himself anymore. He was contributing. His learning had purpose. Then came the wall. Midway through a new project, Ethan hit a plateau. No matter how hard he tried, the logic behind object-oriented programming confused him. He watched tutorials, read documentation, asked for help, but nothing clicked. Old thoughts crept in. Maybe this is too hard. Maybe I've hit my limit. But now Ethan knew better. Struggle was part of the process. Frustration wasn't a signal to quit. It was a sign the brain was under construction. He zoomed out. He took a walk, cleared his mind, returned with fresh eyes. He broke the concept into parts, used metaphors, wrote it out in his own words. Slowly, the fog lifted. The wall wasn't a dead end. It was a doorway. And he had the key. He realized then that learning wasn't linear. It spiraled. You revisit the same ideas, but from a higher perspective each time. Mastery isn't a straight path. It loops, climbs, dips, and rises. Ethan began to apply this thinking to everything. Books. He stopped highlighting and started summarizing. Videos. He paused often to explain the idea aloud. Practice. He didn't just do it. He reflected on what worked, what didn't, and why. He treated every mistake as feedback, every success as reinforcement, every challenge as training. His notebook evolved. It became a map of his mind. Not neat, but honest. Full of diagrams, questions, metaphors, failures, insights. He began to trust himself. Not because he knew everything, but because he knew how to learn anything. And that changed everything. The third month brought with it something Ethan hadn't expected: momentum. What once felt like an impossible mountain now felt like a steady climb. Each concept he learned in Python made the next one easier. The compound effect of consistent effort was real. The code wasn't just words on a screen anymore. It was a language, and he was finally fluent enough to hold a conversation. He began tackling mini projects without prompts, building things that mattered to him. A budgeting app, a task tracker, a habit counter. These weren't assignments. They were expressions of what he knew. More importantly, they showed him how to solve problems independently. Whenever he got stuck, he turned to the process he had refined. Break it down, research deeply, reflect on what he learned, and teach it to himself out loud. Over and over, this cycle trained his brain to approach complexity with calm and curiosity instead of panic. At night, he continued his visualizations, seeing himself solve difficult problems, giving talks about what he had learned, leading projects, even teaching others. He didn't just imagine the results. He imagined the process. That mental rehearsal created a kind of familiarity. When real situations came up, they no longer felt new. His brain had already seen them. One evening, while journaling, he paused over the question, "What belief did I challenge today?" He thought about it for a moment, then wrote, "That I need to feel ready before I begin." It was true. He had once believed that learning required perfect conditions: motivation, energy, free time. Now, he knew it only required one thing: action. Action created clarity. Action built confidence. Action rewired his mind. He also started to reflect on his energy levels. Some days the mind was sharp, others it wasn't. Instead of forcing productivity, he adapted. On low-energy days, he focused on review, light practice, or organizing notes. On high-energy days, he pushed into new material. He learned to work with his mind, not against it. This self-awareness became one of his most powerful tools. Around this time, Ethan revisited his earlier learning journal. He was surprised by what he read. Concepts that had once seemed impossible were now second nature. Challenges he had described in detail were no longer obstacles. He could see the evolution, not just in knowledge, but in identity. He had become the kind of person who didn't give up when things got hard. He had become a learner. He realized something else, too. Learning wasn't just for gaining skills. It was for building self-respect. Every time he followed through, every time he showed up, even when tired or distracted, he built trust with himself. That trust was transforming his life. He began applying the same principles to other areas. He used spaced repetition to learn Spanish vocabulary. He created a reflection journal for emotional intelligence. He applied active recall to books he read, turning chapters into flashcards. The system worked. The brain, once given the right tools, became a machine for growth. And yet, he never rushed. Fast wasn't the goal. Deep was. He had learned to embrace slow, deliberate learning. He stopped chasing completion and started chasing comprehension. That mindset shift changed the way he interacted with information. Instead of rushing through a tutorial, he paused to explore why a concept worked the way it did. Instead of memorizing terms, he created analogies that made sense to him. Instead of jumping from one topic to the next, he stayed with one until he could teach it to a child. That depth created durability. He could go days without reviewing something and still recall it. Not because he repeated it 100 times, but because he understood it at its core. His brain wasn't filled with scattered facts. It was filled with connected ideas. And that made all the difference. One morning, Ethan received an email that made him smile. It was from a startup he had been following. They were hiring for a junior developer role. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have even considered applying. But now he felt ready. Not because he knew everything, but because he knew how to learn. He applied. He didn't get the job, but the rejection didn't sting. He had already won something more important: the ability to grow, adapt, and persist. He adjusted his plan, improved his portfolio, practiced interview questions, kept going. Every failure was feedback. Every setback was setup. And then, just weeks later, another opportunity appeared, an internship with a small local agency. They were looking for someone who could learn fast, solve problems, and contribute to real projects. Ethan interviewed, shared his journey, explained his learning system, and showed his projects. They were impressed. He got the position. It wasn't a dream job. It wasn't high-paying, but it was proof. Proof that his system worked. Proof that rewiring the mind could change a life. On his first day, he opened his laptop, looked around the co-working space, and took a breath. He wasn't just starting a job. He was continuing a journey. A journey built on the simple idea that learning isn't about talent. It's about structure, reflection, persistence, and belief. He smiled, opened his editor, and began. The internship pushed Ethan in ways he hadn't anticipated. Suddenly, he wasn't just learning for himself. He was learning to contribute, to collaborate, to deliver. Real clients, real timelines, real consequences. The environment tested everything he had practiced. It wasn't enough to understand concepts. He had to apply them under pressure. The first week, he made mistakes, bugs in the code, missed deadlines, unclear communication. But instead of spiraling into self-doubt, he returned to the habits that had carried him this far. After each mistake, he paused to reflect. What did I miss? Why did it happen? How can I prevent it next time? He wrote notes, updated his flashcards, practiced explanations, and tried again. The cycle of learning, testing, and refining continued. Slowly, he improved. By the end of the month, he had shipped 2 features, debugged a major issue, and received praise for his progress. His manager said, You don't just work hard. You learn fast. That's rare. Ethan knew it wasn't magic. It was design. His learning system had become second nature. When new frameworks appeared, he didn't panic. He broke them down, created micro goals, set up flashcards, and engaged with the material deeply. When communication became a challenge, he treated it like a skill. He studied feedback techniques, practiced listening, and reviewed his interactions. Every weakness became a curriculum. Learning had become a lifestyle. Outside of work, Ethan continued experimenting. He took on side projects, helped friends with websites, contributed to open-source repositories. But more than anything, he began helping others learn. He started a blog where he broke down complex topics in simple terms. At first, only a few people read it. But slowly, comments came in, people thanking him, asking questions, requesting more. His voice grew clearer with every post. Teaching wasn't just a way to give back. It was the ultimate test of understanding. Each blog forced him to organize his thoughts, challenge assumptions, and clarify ideas. The more he taught, the more he learned. Then came the invitation. Maya messaged him again, this time with a different kind of opportunity. Want to speak at a virtual learning summit? Just 10 minutes. Share your story. Ethan hesitated. Public speaking terrified him. But then he remembered the belief he had written months earlier. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to begin. So he said yes. Preparing for the talk felt like climbing another learning mountain. He scripted, practiced, recorded himself, revised, simplified, practiced again. On the day of the summit, his heart pounded. But when it was his turn, he focused on one thing. Speak from the process, not the pressure. He told the audience how he had struggled, how he had discovered better methods, how rewiring his learning approach had changed everything. He ended with the words, "You're not broken. Your method might be. Change the method, and you can change your mind." The response was overwhelming. Emails, messages, invitations to collaborate. But more than external praise, he felt internal proof. The system worked, the method mattered, and now, he wasn't just a learner, he was a guide. From that day, Ethan's mission became clear, to help others unlock their potential by changing the way they learned. He began offering workshops, sharing his system step by step, starting with mindset, followed by technique, practice, reflection, and teaching. People from different backgrounds joined, students, professionals, retirees, creatives. They all shared the same pain, wanting to grow, but feeling stuck. Ethan listened, observed, adjusted. He realized something powerful. Everyone could learn if they had the right strategy. Intelligence wasn't fixed. Talent wasn't everything. The missing piece was structure. So he gave them structure. He taught them how to build a learning habit, how to use spaced repetition, how to engage actively, how to reflect meaningfully. One by one, people reported breakthroughs. I finished my first book in years. I finally understood calculus. I'm learning a language for the first time. The impact grew, but Ethan stayed grounded. He never stopped learning. He kept updating his methods, experimenting with tools, reading new research, trying new fields. He explored neuroscience deeper, studied learning psychology, and practiced what he preached in new domains: music, storytelling, even cooking. Each skill reinforced the principles. Each new challenge proved that the brain was capable of change. He also stayed humble. Every time he felt overconfident, he reminded himself of the early days, sitting in front of that glowing laptop, defeated and lost. That memory kept him compassionate, patient, real. Success didn't make him forget the struggle. It deepened his commitment to the process. He began to see learning not just as a tool, but as a philosophy. It wasn't about gathering knowledge. It was about becoming. Learning became the lens through which he viewed the world. A world full of possibilities, waiting to be explored, understood, and shared. With every new learner he helped, the vision grew. A world where people didn't give up on themselves. A world where the ability to learn was no longer a mystery, but a method. A world where success was accessible, not through shortcuts, but through systems. Years passed, and Ethan's work reached further than he ever imagined. His blog turned into a platform. His workshops became a global community,